If your parents, if the people around you said all the things you thought they should have, if they had just not been toxic, if they'd encouraged you, you wouldn't have any muscle. And right now you don't have any muscle because you're using that as the excuse, if you're thinking that. And I'm not attacking you, brothers and sisters. I'm calling to you because I know you're more. Otherwise, I'd just keep my mouth shut. You've been hypnotized by a culture of weakness. Now, having said that, I'll say one last thing. I know you haven't got other questions, but it's so important what you asked. Yes, there are people that you don't want to hang out with that will not serve you. But then move on. Don't sit there and talk about it constantly. Don't waste your time. And you say, but what if it's family, Tony? Mine was family too. And you learn to grow. You go, they're in my life. If someone can get your goat, if someone can piss you off, if someone can make you feel less than, that's God coming to you saying, grow. You need some spiritual growth. There's got to be some change in your perception, your belief, your emotions, your spiritual look of life, so that can't happen anymore. And when it happens, like at 61, I've been through so many of those things, and I like to do things in mass. I took on big challenges, so I'd have to grow more. But then life throws them at you too. When they come, you just go, okay, it's gonna have me until I grow. What needs to shift in me so that it no longer has an impact? But Jim Rohn used to say, my original teacher, he used to say, Tony, what happens if I've got a cup of coffee here? And he'd say, what if your worst enemy drops sugar in your coffee? What's gonna happen? And I go, well, you'd have sweet coffee. And he goes, what if your best friend, your mother, your father, your brother, your sister, your loved one drops one drop of strychnine? I said, you'd be dead. He goes, that's right. Life is both sugar and strychnine, so watch your coffee. His whole thing was stand guard at the door of your brain. But some people take that and go, oh my God, you can kill me. It was a metaphor. These people are not so toxic. They're toxic because you give them energy. So if your mom's crazy and constantly criticizing you and it drives you nuts, just go, that's my mom. That's her way of showing love. And I find a new perspective. And no matter what she does, just stay in a beautiful state and love on her and think, boy, think of all that she cares and feels for, all that she's frustrated in life, or all that she's going through that's made her this way. And think, God, I don't have to go through this. I can love her. It's like your growth is the only limit to your happiness. If you're not happy, you're not growing in some area. And usually it's a place where you're blaming, you're pointing the finger. I don't care if it's government, don't get me wrong. People can be unfair, unjust, that's for sure happens. But you can't control that. You can't make it not happen. What you have to do is become stronger than any of it so you're free. Freedom comes from growth. Freedom does not come from control. Because control is an illusion. You can't control everybody. No matter how hard you try, you can't control what they think or feel. And not everybody's going to be fair and just. And you, my dear friends, and I have not always been fair and just. Whether we admit it or not, it's just the nature of being a human being. But we can make the largest pattern fair and just and loving and powerful and serving and growing until it becomes the dominant thing inside you. And then you experience life as being great, not you're great. Life's great because you're living a great path.
My great fear around the world is how many people here are not playing for themselves. They're playing for their parents, they're playing for their friends. The things they buy, the things they start, the way they live are predicated on other people's opinions, not themselves. And so I'm not coming here to start with a buzzkill, but I also do not want to be delusional to the reality of the situation. Everybody now is pandering to venture capital or to raising capital, not to actually building a business. Every day. Thank you. It's important. And thank you so much for jumping on that. It's important because let me tell you why in 2006, 7, 8, 9, I was taking all of my money and investing in Tumblr and Facebook and Twitter and Uber and all these things that I did very well with, and why over the last 4 years I've invested very little, very carefully, because there's a disconnect right now and there's illusions of the reality. If you stand here or sit here today and there is nothing that you could think about other than building a business, because the process of building a business is your happiness, not what a successful business allows you to buy, well then you're a purebred entrepreneur. Somebody asked me today in an interview, what do I do with my downtime? I told them that I start other businesses. It's all I know. It's who I am. It's the same way when I see a teacher or an artist or anybody, when I can see through their soul that they were meant to cook or paint or build or whatever it may be, I get such happiness. It's the same reason that people that I went to school with who make $53,000 a year, but I know they're so happy because it's what they want.
Most people are anticipating the day they'll be happy. Oh, if I do this, that, and the other thing. It's a horrible habit. Horrible. Focus on, are you momentary happiness? Now there's two types of happiness. This is a long conversation. You don't only want momentary happiness. You sometimes have to postpone present pleasure as an investor to get something back later. I understand that. But there's also the other end of the spectrum that if you're not liking most of your life, make some big changes. If you like most of your life, but there's a few little things, then you make little changes. People always ask me, how do you know? Simple. If everything's fucked, then you have to make huge changes. Usually. There's exceptions. If everything's pretty good, just one thing gets on your nerves, you probably just got to change one, maybe two things. But get to that place where depression's diminishing, even if you have to do something dramatic, even if you have to quit a job, even if you have to move out from somebody you're living with, even if you have to spend less time with a family member, or you can't sacrifice your happiness overall unless you're investing. So let's say, for example, you go to the gym and you're not that happy to be lifting weights because it hurts. Well, that's temporary pleasure that has a payoff very quickly, and your body gets healthier. That kind of pain you can keep around because there's a gain to it. There's the pain and then the gain. But a lot of us, and I've done this before, you get to a place where there's pain, but there's no gain. It's just pure pain.
Kobe Inc. and this venture capital firm are a lot to take on. Other things, it seems like kind of each of your vehicles maybe has a specific purpose. Are there other areas and things that you're looking at and want to pursue?
Well, no, it's pacing, right? Because there's certain things that we want to get to, but we have to pace those out because we have to have absolute focus on a few of those things, right? The Brian Steibel Fund and the stories that we are creating, right? I mean, those are our two lenses right now. There are other things that are going to come, but that's way down the road. We have to have a very, very sharp lens because we can do so many things. I mean, that's the hardest part. Right. When we first started it is, you have so many people coming from different angles, different points of view, and you can do this, you can do that, and a lot of them are, very lucrative offers, but they're small window opportunities. And the hardest part's been pushing those to the side and going for things that have a much, much longer tail, which is risky, but what are you gonna do? I think that's the best way to go about it.
When you look inside your brain, inside your skull, and you see a brain, that's also just a data structure that you're creating. Neurons are just data structures. They don't exist, and this is the weird stuff. I don't have a brain when no one looks, and some of my colleagues would say, yeah, I agree with that. You don't have a brain. But the point of this is that we create any physical object that we see in the moment that we see it. And so neurons don't exist when they're not perceived. Therefore, neurons could not be the source of our conscious experiences. In fact, space-time itself is just your data structure. So the idea that space-time exists and has existed for 14 billion years as a pre-existing stage in which the drama of life plays out is also deeply wrong. Space-time itself is just a data structure that we create. So what is reality? It's a long answer to your question, but the answer is I don't know, but I'm trying to come up with a reality that would allow me to solve this hard problem of consciousness. So if the brain is just a symbol that we create when we look, and I'm trying to understand how consciousness is related to it, if I start with a theory in which consciousness is fundamental, and I have to do it scientifically, say, what do I mean precisely by consciousness with mathematical precision, and I have this theory that I call conscious agents, in which conscious agents interact. It's like the proposal is that reality is a vast social network. It's like a Twitterverse or Facebook. It's a big social network of conscious agents. That's the reality. They're not in space and time. They're just consciousnesses interacting with each other. As they interact, they are passing experiences back and forth. And it's an infinite Twitterverse, an infinite set of consciousnesses out there in this big social universe, social network universe. And any single conscious agent in that network would be overwhelmed trying to understand all of it. Like if you were trying to understand Twitter, there's tens of millions, hundreds of millions of users, billions of tweets. How are you going to try to understand what's going on in the Twitterverse? Well, you can't. But what you can do is you can use visualization tools. Suppose I have a visualization tool that compresses it all down, shows you what's trending in this city and what's trending over there. So you compress it all down maybe into something that you can see through a headset so that you can actually, well, here's the Twitterverse in London, here's the Twitterverse in Edinburgh, and so forth, and here's what's going on, here's what's trending. Then you could sort of visualize it. That's what evolution did for us. The reality is this big, vast social network of interacting conscious agents. Each individual agent would be overwhelmed because it's infinite social network. And so what we call the physical world just is our visualization tool. That's what we have. So we've mistaken, so this is all a big visualization tool. Space-time and physical objects are the way we visualize our interaction with this vast universe of social network universe.
If I died today, would I regret not going after this fear? Would I regret that I didn't share this with my girlfriend, my husband, my wife, my kids, that I didn't go back to school, that I didn't write the book, launch the podcast, whatever it is, would I regret it? And for me, I just never want to regret. So I'm like, okay, I've now found a process. I've hired someone to do 3 days a week. I'm fitting it in my calendar. This is a priority every day. And it sucks right now because I feel like I'm not learning I can't speak still, but it's like, it's going to take years. And I just need to trust the process and appreciate all the little wins. And don't try to be fluent right away. Just be like, okay, I know a couple more words today. And that's what I think, if people could do that, their life would be that much more magical if you wrote down your biggest fears and you started tackling them every year.